Hey everyone, welcome back to the Kristan Hawkins Show. Today we're going to talk about why the Senate GOP needs to remove the unelected Senate Parliamentarian, who, by the way, was appointed by Democrats. Stat. We also are going to talk about a horrible case brewing in Fairfax County, Virginia, where school staff allegedly arranged and paid for, possibly paid for, secret abortions on minor girls without even telling their parents. And we're going to end on a positive note with some incredible revelations about how a baby's stem cells in the womb can help heal their mom's body. You're especially going to take a note about this if you ever debate abortion on a campus or with basically anyone. So let's dig right into it. I want to start today talking about the Senate Parliamentarian. I know, you're probably thinking, we've already done this, right? The BBB has been passed. Well, as I've talked about before, it's certainly not over, right? The House version had 10 years of defunding Planned Parenthood, 80% of their taxpayer funds, their Medicaid dollars. The Senate version got whittled down to 1 year because of one person, the Senate Parliamentarian. And then, even though that was signed into law on July 4th, I was here watching it live on TV. Even though it's been signed into law, there's been injunctions that have actually been enacted against the BBB's provisions defunding Planned Parenthood. So guess what? Planned Parenthood's still getting taxpayer funds while we wait for these court cases to get fought and for the Trump DOJ to step it up and fight with all the vigor they have against this Obama-appointed judge in Massachusetts, which has basically stopped all of our progress. But let's get back to the Senate. So remember how I said it got passed from the House, 10 years of defunding, which was the max. Then something mysterious happened in the Senate, and it got whittled down to 1 year. The reason we have heard that it was whittled down from 10 years to 1 year is because of the Democrat-appointed Senate Parliamentarian Elizabeth MacDonough. She is the reason we have heard that it went from 10 years of defunding, which could cripple and would cripple the abortion life, to 1 year. And so we need to talk about why this person is able to do this, because last time I checked, the Senate Parliamentarian is an unelected position who was appointed by Democrats. Why are Senate Republicans allowing an unelected Democrat-appointed bureaucrat to literally make life and death decisions about a bill they're going to pass? It's actually shocking when you think about it. And I think we need to talk about this now, because I know while we're waiting on the courts and all that stuff to fight against the injunctions, there's already talks going on in Washington, D.C. about the House and Senate passing another budget reconciliation bill, possibly before even the end of this year, at the end of 2025. Certainly, again, before the midterm elections in 2026. So this is going to happen again, unless the Senate Republican leadership actually steps up to act here. So to back it all up, the question might be, well, why does the Senate need a parliamentarian anyway? I recently had an op-ed that was published in The Hill about this crisis that's happening in the Senate that no one wants to talk about. The parliamentarian position was created in the 1930s as an advisory role to weigh in on statutes and procedures that guide the legislative process. This role was not created by the Founding Fathers to ensure a check on congressional decision-making. Nope, didn't happen. This role does not appear in the U.S. Constitution. Nope, not there. In fact, this current Senate parliamentarian, Elizabeth MacDonough, was appointed in 2012 by the Democrat Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. And it's now turned into this lifetime role. It's interesting because when you think about Washington, D.C., I worked in Washington, D.C. I was a presidential appointee in the George W. Bush administration right after I graduated college. It's commonplace that when you're appointed by a Republican president, for example, if you serve at the president's pleasure, you resign at the end of 4 years. And so it's commonplace that, there's careers in the government and there's political appointees. And when you're appointed by a political appointee, you're to resign at the end of, that person's term. That's not the case here. The other thing is interesting about the Senate parliamentarian role is that this person doesn't have to be obeyed. This person is there to advise, to give advice, but for some reason, Senate Republicans seem to think that like this person's word is absolute law, even if it's bad advice. And at times, we've seen throughout Senate history since the 1930s where the Senate leadership has said, yeah, thanks for your advice, but we're going in another direction. In fact, the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, a Senate Republican from South Dakota, is perfectly free to fire her at will or just ignore her warnings or rulings altogether. And it's not unprecedented to do it. 1975, Republican Vice President Nelson Rockefeller, he overruled the parliamentarian during a budget battle. 1975. 2001, Senate Majority Leader Trent Lott, a Republican from Mississippi, fired the then Senate parliamentarian Robert Dove after his interpretation of the Senate rules threatened George W. Bush's tax cuts. Remember that? Was any of you alive? I was. In 2013, Elizabeth MacDonough's pal, Harry Reid, who appointed her, changed the Senate's own rules to allow for or force a cloture vote on judicial nominations. This was a big deal because, as you know, to get anything passed out of the Senate, you need to vote cloture, which is the end of debate, and that needs 60 votes. And they were trying to stop judicial nominations, and so they wanted to. Yeah. Anyway, so cloture, getting rid of cloture or adding cloture makes it more difficult or easier to get judicial nominations through. This happened in 2017 when Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said he wanted cloture, got rid of cloture on the Supreme Court nominations and to enact Trump tax cuts because, as you know, no party has 60 votes. And so this is a way for the minority to stop anything in the Senate with this cloture vote. This is why, for example, we can't get a federal defund Planned Parenthood bill passed because even though we could pass it in the House, we don't have 60 votes in the Senate. That's why defunding Planned Parenthood goes to a budget reconciliation vote because budget reconciliation votes don't need cloture votes. I know, I'm sorry, I'm getting like super dorky and wonky. But all that to say is they've overrode rules that they've set in the past to get certain things done when Democrats and Republicans have been the majority and the world didn't end. During the Biden presidency, the most recent example, House Democrats actually sent a letter to Democratic Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer telling him he must override the parliamentarians' view on votes advancing regarding immigration and minimum wage laws. And even recently as this year, the current Senate Majority Leader, Republican John Thune, voted against the parliamentarian on a fight over emission standards. So, this person is not king. Talk about there's no king protests that 60-year-olds across the country are having. Yeah, there's a king in Washington, D.C., and it's Elizabeth MacDonough, apparently. It's crazy. So, next question is, why did this happen here? Why was the Senate parliamentarian given this enormous amount of power to whittle 10 years of defunding Planned Parenthood, 80% of taxpayer funds, to one? Why didn't the Senate just override her? It's not like people weren't sounding the alarm. We were sounding the alarm as Students for Life. Republican Greg Steube, a Florida House of Representatives member, talked about this a lot on X. We had Alabama Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville, he's a good friend, talked about this a lot. I was posting on X. He actually talked about, he said, quote, "This is a perfect example of why Americans hate the swamp. Unelected bureaucrats think that they know better than the U.S. congressmen who were elected by the people. Her," Elizabeth MacDonough, "job is not to push a woke agenda. The Senate parliamentarian should be fired ASAP." Hell yeah, that is great advice and it should be followed. And if Republicans knew it was good for them, they would heed this advice. Strategically speaking, capping Planned Parenthood's defunding, 80% defunding at 1 year, is really bad for Republicans entering midterm elections because now, because it's 1 year, we know in the next Senate budget reconciliation, House budget reconciliation bill, guess what? This is going to be a premium debate. This is going to be something Students for Life and the rest of the pro-life movement's weighing in on. And I have a pretty good authority that they usually, Republicans in Washington, D.C., just want pro-lifers to be quiet and be happy and go vote. We're not happy because we didn't get what we wanted. We didn't get what the House proved is possible because of the Senate Parliamentarian. So now the Senate GOP has just made their job even harder because they're going to be getting attacked from the left and Planned Parenthood for defunding Planned Parenthood for 1 year. And they got pro-lifers who aren't too happy and are going to keep bugging them to defund Planned Parenthood for the maximum 10 amount of years. Just to be very clear, Students for Life Action will score any attempt to add spending and giving taxpayer money to Planned Parenthood into a budget. We will score that. So like, even if it's a budget bill, and there's going to be lots of good things in budget bills, we need budgets, right? We haven't had one in Washington, D.C. in a long time, which is why we keep overspending, but we need budget bills. But now every budget bill is going to be a pro-life vote. And we're going to be scoring, yay or nay against the bill, depending on whether or not the Senate and the House puts funding for or takes away or ensures funding for Planned Parenthood is not in the bill. That is going to be a pain in the butt for even some of our friends. We have great friends in the Senate. For example, Rand Paul is one who is working hard to debar Planned Parenthood. Which would be permanent defunding for 3 years. We're the leading organization calling for debarment of Planned Parenthood. Has sponsored the defund Planned Parenthood bill. Has sponsored a lot of bills over the years, and then we had to give him a bad score because they voted against the budget reconciliation bill for other reasons. Important reasons, but because the budget reconciliation bill ended up being a pro-life bill because of defunded Planned Parenthood, now he had to have a bad score. This is a pain for all of us. Republicans should just get smart and do this one time. Beat it over. If Republicans are serious about being the governing party, surviving the midterms, which we know Democrats are going for them to take over at least the House majority, they need a good team. And the parliamentarian is not on Team Republican or Team Pro-Life. And she's been proven to be an obstacle time and time again to President Trump's agenda. Many people, not just me, are asking this question of why is Senate Majority Leader Thune, allowing Elizabeth MacDonough to be in place? She has to be fired, especially before the next budget reconciliation bill. The fate of Planned Parenthood's victims, little babies and little girls, should not be in the hands of a Democrat-appointed, unelected bureaucrat. And if Republicans want to earn and keep our vote in the pro-life movement, sitting on their hands in such an easy issue to solve, like literally it's like one termination notice, that's a losing strategy, hands down. All right, everyone. Next, not great topic to have to talk about. It's actually a horrific story out of Fairfax County, Virginia. This is a long story. It's been going on. I'm going to try to summarize it for you. So buckle up right now. It's a doozy. Let me just say at the outset, these are allegations, right? Nothing, you're not guilty until proven in a court of law. The story is developing. We've actually spent time. We didn't, at Students for Life, you might notice, Students for Life didn't talk about this immediately on X because we wanted time to study it ourselves and make sure these allegations were credible before even reporting it to everyone. But we have looked into this story and they look very credible. All right, so there's no charges that have been pressed, but Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin has just ordered, this is brand new, has just ordered a full criminal investigation of the Virginia State Police into Fairfax County's public schools because of these abortion allegations. This is a huge escalation, and it's the first outside investigation that we know of. So I think if the governor feels comfortable ordering this investigation, I think we can say these are pretty credible allegations. So this is what's going on. A couple weeks ago, an investigative journalist named Walter Kurt broke a story saying that 2 minor females at Centerville High School in Fairfax County, Virginia, that's right outside Washington, D.C., it's one of the richest counties in America, that these 2 minor girls, or formerly minor girls, they're a little older now, claim that school officials secretly arranged their abortions and had the school even pay for them. If this is true, this is horrific on many levels. First, this would be illegal on a lot of different fronts because parents were not told. Parental rights were violated. This is a school procuring a medical procedure for a minor without telling her parents. This involves using taxpayer time. They did this on a work day, right? Taxpayer funded time and possibly actual money to get these girls to an abortion facility to have an abortion. One of the girls says that she felt coerced and pressured into having an abortion. And most importantly, we have the abuse of 4 children, right? These 2 minor girls, the one baby that we know for sure died, and the other who was almost killed, but thankfully his mother chose life at the last minute. This is what the formerly pregnant students are alleging happened. They say in 2021, a school social worker, Carolina Diaz, scheduled an abortion appointment for them, paid for the clinic fees, and insisted that they keep it secret. These girls were both 17 at the time of their pregnancies. One was 5 months along. And this girl allegedly did not want to have an abortion, but says she felt pressured into having one. After the school allegedly scheduled and paid for her abortion, she has said to have run out of the abortion facility after she was told she had no choice to abort. So her baby survived. Both of the young women said that the school principal in 2021 knew about this. The other girl went through with the abortion and her child is dead. In Virginia right now, because there's still not this, there's not a New York or Illinois state crazy abortion law yet, Reproductive Rights Act, which they're trying to bring it on the ballot in 2026. We have a whole campaign at Students for Life to stop this from happening. Go to protectlifevirginia.com right now and sign up for door knocking. I'll probably be doing a podcast, I'm sure, about that in the future. But right now, as Virginia laws stand, and as they stood in 2021, minors cannot legally undergo abortions unless their parents have either been notified, not even consent, just notification, or the girl has gone through what's called a judicial bypass to obtain permission from a judge to have the abortion without parental involvement. This is a scheme the abortion lobby cooked up in the 80s to bypass parental notification laws. It basically, the abortion facility will drive her to a judge, and he or she will say, are you independently making this decision? Are you an adult, can make this your own reproductive rights decision? Oh yes, you look like you are at 13. Sounds good. Stamp judicial bypass, and then they take her to the abortion facility and have the abortion. There's no judicial bypass or parental notification documented for at least one of the cases that the investigator was able to look up. Couldn't find it. The principal, Chad Lehman, and other school officials were allegedly aware that this was all going on, it was being arranged, that potentially even taxpayer funds were being used to pay the abortion facility, which is, by the way, criminal and civil. That's laws that were broken. According to Walter Kurt, the students notified a teacher named Zanita Perez, who then became the whistleblower in this case. Perez repeatedly reported these allegations to Fairfax County Public Schools, and she didn't do it just once. She did it 7 separate times over a number of years. 7 times. When Perez tried to expose the wrongdoing, she now claims that school leadership responded by attempting to silence her, that administrators tried to bait students and former students to report her for minor school violations, and they even tried to get her to resign. It wasn't until Walter Kurt's investigative reporting started to gain traction and was actually just featured on Laura Ingram's show that Fairfax County Schools has now publicly responded. They released a statement this month, so August 2025, claiming they had only recently learned of these allegations, but reporting shows that they were told a long time ago. No immediate investigation or parental notification reportedly occurred at the time of initial reports that can be found, which, that would be basic. If they were told years ago about this, why didn't they institute any investigation or contact any parents? We do know that once this went public, Fairfax County Public Schools has hired an investigator and outside counsel who's known to help school districts who are in scandal. But there was outrage about that because this person apparently is known for kind of just like being a cover-up agent of like controlling evidence, suppressing details, shielding, the press from the actual story. And so the story continues, and there's all kinds of like local press and Substack articles from and local writers writing about this story, because the damage control kind of response, it fits a broader pattern that Fairfax County Public Schools has had with prior scandals, where they hire outside lawyers and then everything gets buried and we can't talk about it because it's under investigation. This is obviously looks terrible for the beginning of a new school year for Fairfax County Public Schools. I'd like to say it's a shock, but knowing some of the other investigations and scandals that have been happening in the Northern Virginia public school system, especially about trans students, I can't say I'm completely surprised. I think if we know of 2 minors whose abortions were facilitated illegally and possibly illegally paid for with taxpayer funds, there's probably a lot more. I mean, my next question is, how many more don't we know about? Part of me is like, why would you do this? Why would school administrators and officials take such a big legal, like criminal and civil legal risk to do this? Not to mention, a morally bankrupt decision. Ghoulish is the only word I think you could use to describe this level of depravity that's happened there. Hopefully, the Virginia State Police conduct a swift investigation, get to the bottom of these allegations. If these allegations are true, the state should be swift in initiating a formal criminal proceeding. It has to be made, and an example has to be made here that needs to be 100% clear, that children, whether they're 17 years old in school or still in the womb, are off limits from these maniacs, these ideologues who've infiltrated public schools. There should be zero tolerance for abuse and coercion or cutting parents out of literally life and death decisions. Can you imagine if one of the girl who underwent the abortion, if she had died in the abortion? They had a lot of faith in the abortionist to give her access to an abortion and be like, well, I hope she's good. Have you ever tried to get Tylenol in a public school setting? Say, oh, I have a headache, can I get Tylenol? They can't give you Tylenol without calling your parents. Tylenol. But yet they facilitated and took her to an abortion facility and maybe even paid for it. A life-ending procedure that certainly ends the life of the baby if the abortionist is good at their job, but it can also end her life. It's also a beautiful ad for homeschooling, in case you didn't know. Because why would you let your children have access to these depraved individuals who literally have shown that they don't care about them? They just care about advancing their agenda. That was a heavy topic. I'm going to switch gears on end today's podcast on a lighter note. I.e., pregnancy is amazing. And it seems like every year, scientists are discovering new ways that the baby inside of the mother, in the womb, actually helps the mother. I think it's crazy that every time I'm on campus debating an abortion advocate, they always try to call pregnancy a parasitic relationship or claim that the child is an invader of the mother's body, that they're not wanted, they're an unwanted intruder. I've even heard some students at times try to compare like the baby in the womb to like a rapist, because they're invading the mother's body against her consent. Today, I want to take a minute to just appreciate how pregnancy is a beautiful relationship between mom and child, where even one little human, this baby, can even help the mother before he or she's born. So for moms, what we've just learned, that if moms suffer heart damage, a heart attack during pregnancy, stem cells from the baby can cross the placenta, make their way into her bloodstream to her injured heart. And because embryonic stem cells, they can differentiate into other stem cells in ways adult stem cells can't. Embryonic cells can become heart cells, lung cells, brain cells, skin cells, bone, everything. And that's exactly what they do for a pregnant mom. When a child's stem cells reach her heart through the bloodstream after a heart attack, MountSinai.org describes what happens next. Quote, the stem cells then reprogram themselves as beating heart stem cells to aid in repair. amazing. This is why you'll often hear researchers talking about embryonic stem cell research versus adult stem cells, because embryonic stem cells are totally potent stem cells. They can become anything. You don't have to get the adult stem cells from someone's heart to do a heart research. And this is why it then becomes a whole unethical thing, because how do researchers get embryonic stem cells? Dead babies. But that's why embryonic stem cells are seen as so valuable, because they can turn into anything. So Mount Sinai, this one experiment that Mount Sinai did is mind-blowing. So this is what they did. They evaluated the hearts of pregnant female mice that underwent mid-gestation, so mid-pregnancy, heart injury, but yet survived. They used green fluorescent protein in the mouse fetus to tag the fetal stem cells, to try and trace them, that were derived from the placenta. They found that the green fluorescent stem cells went to the injured hearts of the mouse mothers, grafted into the damaged heart tissue, and then differentiated themselves, turned themselves into smooth muscle cells, blood vessel cells, and other types of heart cells. That's amazing. Unbelievable. I don't even know how they did that. How did they tag these stem cells and turn them green, and then they traced them from the placenta to the mouse mother's heart? I mean, that's crazy. But here's a big news flash. Parasites don't do that. Like I said, we hear all the time, abortion advocates will always try to talk about the dangers posed to women in pregnancy and kind of make it sound like there's no advantage to women of being pregnant. It's only a negative, net negative. That's what they talk about. And that's why we hear on campuses things like, it's a parasitic relationship. We never talk about the unique and wonderful bond between mother and child in the womb, even though we know the bond exists on like every level. We don't ever talk about this mental bond or the physical bond. Aside from the fact that every child in the womb is actually like a living miracle in itself, the child can give benefits to the mother in real ways, such as healing her heart after a heart attack. This does not happen in a parasitic relationship. If you think about a parasitic relationship, right, is like the host takes and takes and takes, and it hurts the host. That's not what's happened here. That's not what Mount Sinai just proved in this relationship, because the child in the womb is not taking and taking. The child in the womb can also give and give. And that's what we've just proven. This is just amazing. It's amazing. I can't wait to talk about this on college campus. I need to print out this medical study to have in my back pocket, because students will probably say I'm lying. I'll have to pull it up on Google like I normally do. Anyway, thank you all for joining this episode of the Kristan Hawkins Show this week. Make sure you subscribe and follow for more discussions like this. My show is now going to every other week, because I've got a grueling travel schedule lined up for the next few months, and this will be easier to get shows to you. But don't worry, you'll be getting lots of more campus tour clips and lots of social media reacts from me. In fact, I think we just finished our campus tour clips from 2023. Yeah, that's how far behind we are. That's how much footage we have. So pretty soon you're going to be seeing campus tour clips from 2024. Then maybe 2026, you'll see all the ones from this past year. But thank you. Thank you for joining me this week. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing this podcast with your friends and family. If you want to hear from me daily, though, I know because you don't get enough of Kristan, you can get pro-life news that's caught my eye, or action items that I think you need to know about. Monday through Friday, you'll get one text message from me today, from me a day. To sign up to my personal text list, just text the word Kristan. The only hint is you have to spell my name right. Kristan, to 53445, and you'll get a Monday through Friday text. Me usually comes out in the evening. Until next week, or the week after that, keep speaking up for the voiceless and standing for life. I can't wait to see what Students for Life does this year on college campuses, and all the ways you all change minds and save lives and create a culture of life. Bye.